Divine grace of all eternal Srila Prabhupada Pandacharya Iskcon. Srila Prabhupada ki, Vipiti Pandacharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Jaya Vishnupad Paramhans Parvarkacharya Stotra Srila Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada ki, Anantpuri Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Jai Gaur Premanande, Guru Puja ki, Jai Ho, Sunday Satsang ki. So warm welcome to everyone, and today we had a yogya this morning, so a few of the members won't be coming, but others are here. So we'll, of course, my friend Pibu Prabhu has come. Ask him to sing there's the harmonium, there's the mic. I'm Nigam. आपको कला तो जब खराब ही हमारे से तो बेहतर है यार थोड़ा सा कर लेना थोड़ा सा सभी वेट कर रहे हैं ना जूम पे ना एक आधा छोटा हाँ उसी बाद में सच्चिदानंद भी गाएंगे Jai Satchidananda.
Jai Satchidananda Nitai Chand ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Prachamani Nirvishesha Shunavani Vashakare Shotari Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Gora Bhakta Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Ram Ram Hare
अच्छी भी हो ऐसा नहीं कहा सकता कोई बात नहीं नेक्स्ट टाइम हमें कोई पता नहीं लगेगा आवाज से पता लगता है ना नहीं अरे आनंद में कोई फर्क नहीं अभी हमारे पुजारी जी कुछ गाएंगे अग्रवाल का he आपका साथी है he looks the happiest but we will think that they look very happy इसके पिच में वो आया
तुम हमारे थे प्रभु जी तुम हमारे हो तुम हमारे ही रहोगे ओ मेरे दास की विनती सुन लीजो, गोविंद राज दुलारे। दास की विनती सुन लीजो, गोविंद राज दुलारे। आखिर आस जीवन के पूरन करना प्यारे। आखिर आस जीवन के पूरन आखिर आस जीवन के पूरन करना प्यारे। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जरा जय राधा माधव जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी।
Have it back. Yeah, no, it's okay. But Pujari, they fill your space. You two people who are very nice. So there you are. We've got people back from Mayapur. You can see the quality of singer he is. So don't try to compete with him. Just follow him. And Bangladesh produce the best singers, I feel. And both of the Pujaris are from there. Very, very humble, talented. And they know Siddhanta as well. They know what religion is. And they're committed to it. And that's what makes you a perfect devotee. It's all right saying I'm Hindu because I'm born in it. But you don't know your Gita, you don't know your Ramayana, you don't know your Vedas, then you might as well call yourself XYZ. So it doesn't really matter. But you got to read your scriptures, live the life according to scriptures in the modern way. Yeah, because we're in the modern world now, you've got to be practical. And for that reason, I'll ask Guru Sevak to enlighten us today. They are students from Coventry Uni, all of you, Coventry University, some from Warwick as well. And so they are running a society there as well. And Guru Sevak in Warwick University did it for 13 years, developed the whole program and everything, and did it very successfully. So I think maybe in your talk you could address the challenges you had as a young man, and how much difference did you make, if at all? Or if you did, and have you met those people who met you and said, okay, thank you for what you did? So they're inspired to know that whatever they do is worth the value, and it'll help them and it'll help others as well. So Guru Sevak Prabhu, he's a very accomplished singer as well. And they're our future really, isn't that right, Vidhu Prabhu? You know, the next generation, we're building them up because nobody stays there forever. Srila Prabhupada prepared us, we've got to prepare the next generation. And this way, what we're doing is not that we're maintaining our religion, you're actually helping the people to get the goal of human life, and that is to love Krishna. That is the goal. You know, whether you're here or in the Swarglok or Patalok, if you have the message of Krishna consciousness in your heart, then Krishna will save you. So, I'll leave it to you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chashurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Hari Bol everyone, welcome to our Hot Sunday program. It's lovely to have Vibhu Prabhu back. The first thing he came back when he said, he goes, it's a little cold here, so the Mridanga won't be as warm as it is in Bharat. I was like, Prabhu, we're boiling hot here. So today's class, I'm going to give it on Nectar of Instruction, verse 2. I'll cover also what Haridas Prabhu has mentioned, just as part of it. So, I know we may have an issue. Can someone put the... No, Lord's not here. No, the TV screen on. I could have put the verse on.
So can you just say word after word, but repeat after
Okay, yeah. So if you repeat after me, Atyahara,
Atyahara,
Prayasascha, Prajalpo, Nijamagraha, Janasanga, Lolyancha, Shadbir, Bhakti, Vinashyati, Atyahara, Prayasascha, Prajalpo, Nijamagraha, Janasangascha Lolyancha, Shadbir Bhaktir Vinashyati. So translation Bhasha Prabhupada. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. 1. Eating more than is necessary or collecting more funds than is required. 2. Over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. 3. Talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. 4. Practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them, and not for the sake of spiritual advancement. Or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5. Associating with worldly-minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6. Being greedy for mundane achievements. So we won't go through repeating because it's such a long purport, or it's a long translation, but we'll look through a little bit of the purport and then go into the actual verse itself. So purport Bhasha Prabhupada Ki Jai. Human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. So if we just examine that for a second, human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. I think the way the society is currently constructed, it's completely opposite. We go for sophisticated living and no, not much thinking at all. Very basic thinking. And Srila Prabhupada says, what is this basic thinking? He said it's eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Because this is animalistic propensities. It's the natural function of any creature. If you look, we were discussing today at the program that the Bhagavan was describing an eagle with a 12-foot wingspan. And come down and grab monkeys out of the trees, fly very high, stop at the mountain and drop the monkey, and the monkey would die. And then it would go in. And I was saying, look at this. The animal society is actually much better at this eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Ask the human to defend itself against a grizzly bear. Who's seen those videos on YouTube? A grizzly bear comes, it's just crawling on the floor, looks very innocent. They start to run at you and they get their full height. They're taller than 6 foot and they can run about 30 miles an hour. Human being is nothing compared to that physically. They wouldn't even be able to defend themselves against it. When you say eating, everything the vegan thing craze is going now, and also people like to do bodybuilding. Look at the elephants. What do they eat? Bamboo and grass. They're vegan. Look at the size of them. They're huge. So animals and sleeping. A bear can hibernate over the whole of winter. A human being, even if he likes to, when he's young, he's good at sleeping. I don't know if you remember, there's some of you are still young. Those when you were very young, you'd go to sleep at night and you would knock out completely and your eyes would wake up the next morning and you feel fully refreshed. Who here as an adult ever has sleep like that anymore?
What's that?
Exactly. You have disturbed sleep in the middle of the night. It's too hot, especially nowadays and all that kind of stuff. You don't wake up feeling refreshed. Animals are even better at this than humans. So you can see, as much as humans may endeavor to become very good at these things, they still can't beat the animal kingdom. So Prabhupada said, if we waste much of our lives doing this, the next birth, the Lord simply gives you a facility to enjoy that better. People are like running. The Lord will make you a horse in your next life. You run very fast. So what is the thing which separates the animal species from the humans? It's a brain. It's an intelligence. Yet, if we just engage that intelligence in the same animal propensities, what are we doing? Just becoming, my Guru Maharaj used to say, instead of four-legged animals, you're two-legged animals. You're simply just doing the same thing. So human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. This is the thing. Use this intelligence. My Guru Maharaj used to say, use it or you lose it. Youngsters, you can't understand this yet because you're forced to use it. In your studies, they make you remember stuff. They quiz you on it. As you get older, nobody does that. No one will check. And when you come to the age of 40, all of a sudden, you start to look at some of these maths problems. And in your youth, you just easily be able to do it. Come on, how do I do that? People, when they're helping their children with their homework, they think, oh God, I used to hate calculus. When I do it, now I have to help my child. So you can see, if you don't use this intelligence, you will lose it. So he says here, human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. Since all conditioned living beings are under the control of the Lord's third energy, this material world is designed so that one is obliged to work. It's a very important thing. One of the things when you look at it here, the main thing in our life which takes up most of the time for most people, other than those that are retired, is you have to work. You have to work, whether it's at university, whether it's in a job, whether it's to run your family. You have to work. You're forced to. And it didn't used to be like this in the olden days, let's call it, in the olden days. Prabhupada says when he was young, his father used to have a cloth shop. And he said only a few hours of the day he would have to go to the shop. Just a few hours, maybe 3-4 hours. The rest of the day he would be involved in his puja, his worship, going to the temples, doing spiritual activity. Now what is the opposite? In the morning, especially if you live in London, get up at 5-6 o'clock, catch the tube, spend hours to get to work by 9 o'clock, work like a donkey till 8 o'clock in the evening, then do the same journey back, go and eat something, go to bed. I once went to visit one of my friends who lived in London, who's an investment banker. And when I saw his daily schedule like this, and I said, how much are you earning every year, if you don't mind me asking? He goes, £130,000. I saw his apartment, didn't have a couch. When he came back to have his dinner, he wasn't eating on a plate, he was eating out of a plastic lunchbox. And I go, you don't look like someone that has £130,000 a year. He goes, when do I get any chance to spend it? Because I'm working all the time. So, if you look here, the second activity is that destroys your bhakti, over-endeavoring for mundane things which are very difficult to obtain. Very difficult to obtain. So you know they're difficult to obtain, but everyone tries so hard to achieve them. And it can be anything in life where you know, man, this is super difficult, whether it's a career, whether it's some job that you want to get to. You have to endeavor, you have to work. But then there's over-endeavor. What does that over-endeavor mean? It means you're sacrificing the important things in your life to do that. Whether it's spiritual activity, whether it's spending time with your family, whether it's doing your other duties. If this comes in the way, that will spoil your bhakti. Why? Because it goes with the sixth thing, being greedy. Being greedy for mundane achievements. So do you see the two go hand in hand? You're going to work hard for some sort of achievement or something you want. If you're overdoing it, it means you're being greedy for it. And in Bhagavad Gita it says, Trividam narakasya idam, dvaram nashnam atmane, kama krodhas tatha lobhas, tasmat etat trayam tyajet. Raj used to like this. He said there are 3 gates to hell: lust, anger, greed. And any of these 3 things you go, they will lead to hellish condition of life, both here and in the next life. So we have to look at these things, and it looks like here that all of these things are things which we would do. Who here doesn't like to eat? Anyone doesn't like to eat here?
Pranava in bad stomach.
Other than Pranava. Usually little children. Then you find little children and you say, oh, it's so difficult to feed them. I'm like, just put ice cream or pizza in front of them, see what happens. You see that with little babies. The other day, Arya, she wasn't eating anything else. They gave her kheer at a grain ceremony. She went, ugh. And I was like, kheer is sweet. Surely she must like it. The next following week, I saw them put an ice cream in front of her. God, she was going for it. Even something that looked like ice cream. The cone was empty. She was still going for that. They put pizza in front of her. She was going for that. So everyone likes to eat. But it says here, if you eat more than necessary, that's a disruption to your bhakti. So that's, let's say, for example, if you're not eating Krishna Prasad. There's a caveat to this. If you look at these six things, you can do exactly the same thing, but for Krishna, and they're all positive. Srila Prabhupada said, he said, look, it's like saying that by having too much milk, you can get an excess of bile in the body. Srila Prabhupada's a chemist, so he knew this. By having too much milk, you get excess of bile. He goes, when you go to the doctor will say, eat yogurt. And if you think, well, hold on, doctor, I've got ill by eating milk, having too much milk, now you're telling me to have a milk product to actually cure the disease. And the doctor will say, no, that's the right thing to do. So similarly, in Krishna consciousness, it looks like you're doing the exact same thing, but you're doing it for Krishna, and it provides the solution. So if you're addicted to having too much food, make that Krishna Prasad. Then you're getting the blessings of the Lord. It's destroying your sin. In Bhagavad Gita, it says, Yatya Shishtashtana Santo Muchante Sarvakil Vishe Bunjate Tva Agam Papa Ye Pachanti Atmakarna. The devotees are released from all kinds of sin because they eat food which is first offered in sacrifice. So just turn it around for Krishna. Look at this one. Over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. I've just mentioned how, let's say you over-endeavor for your job. The rest of your life and all that will be turned upside down. Let's say, for example, you over-endeavor for Krishna. Is there such a thing of over-endeavoring for Krishna? There isn't really. But you should think, I want to over-endeavor for Krishna. That should be the desire. We shouldn't just be satisfied in our bhakti. They say as soon as you say I'm satisfied, you're going backwards. You're not improving. So the over-endeavor would be something like making a big temple for the Lord. We're here is trying to do an extension. And for all of us committee members, it looks like such a big thing. We've been trying for 30 years to get this extension, to extend out to the wall, to make the building higher. It looks like an impossible task. But we're all just endeavoring for it. Because we're thinking, Krishna, we want to do this for you. This is, and the Lord recognizes this. You have to remember, the Lord is always sitting in your heart, observing what you do. And He knows the intention behind it. Many things in Krishna consciousness, people bring their materialistic problems and tendencies and think, let me put that in Krishna consciousness and it's good. So if you like name and fame, you might try and do that in Krishna consciousness. Hey, I want to be famous. I could be a great singer. I'm not good enough for Pop Idol or American Idol, but if I sing some Kirtan here and get everyone to do my Vava, I can get the same. We've seen it so many times. It happens. And Krishna lets you have it for a little while. And then when you realize, oh, nothing much is happening with this, let me just sing for you instead. It's amazing how Krishna does it. He's the washing machine. You come in with your dirty habits and clothes, and by that process, He washes you. You can see Vibhu Prabhu sang so nicely. He's so brilliant, he could be a professional singer. Do you see any pride or any ego or anything in him? Nothing. He's concentrating on the Lord and singing so sweetly. So you can see, over-endeavor for the Lord. The Lord sees every endeavor. Look at the next thing. Talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. Now, you have to remember one thing. There was a verse, I listened to a Prabhupada class today, and he was saying that saintly people will not read any literature which doesn't speak about devotional service to the Lord. They said a saintly person will not read it, just like crows and swans will not eat in the same place. The swan will not eat where the crow does. The crow will eat rubbish as well. The swan will, even from water, he'll be able to take out milk from it if it's mixed. And I looked at this and I thought, well, what does this mean for us nowadays? Firstly, no one reads books anymore. let's be real. Even if you've got a book for, let's say, a project at school, you'll say, is there a movie? Or you'll look at Wikipedia and just read the synopsis of it. So what the actual thing is, we have to look at it. There was no TV or anything then. In our modern era, that translates to the saintly person will not watch mundane topics on TV. And isn't that such a difficult thing nowadays with YouTube, Facebook, social media? It's everywhere. So you might think, oh God, how am I able to do this? And someone said something very nice recently with goal setting. And they said, to achieve 100% of something isn't possible. To try your 100% best at your diet, your career, your whatever, this is just not possible, not sustainable. You'll do it for 1 day, 2 days, and then you'll go back to normal habits. He goes, so why not do 50% of the time? Start with 50%. You'll get 50% to your goal. Then once you're at 50%, then try another 50%. So all it means is, in our lives, let's look how much percentage of time we're actually spending on our phones, social media, television, and all that, and say, right, let me introduce more of that for Krishna. Put a Srila Prabhupada class on. Watch some of Krishna Leelas on TV. Read something spiritual, so that the time that you're spending actually increases in Krishna consciousness. That's called systematically doing it. Because it's not artificial. Because your natural tendency will take you elsewhere. You can't force yourself to do something, but you can slowly introduce it and make progress. So look here, number 4, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement. So what that means is just doing a ritual. Doing a ritual, thinking, let me come to the temple because my parents said it or my grandparents said it's good for me. I'll do it as a ritual and I'll come. You don't actually want to advance spiritually. Or this next one, not following the rules, rejecting the rules of the scriptures. Now, for those that are students, this can be a very difficult subject because at this point in time, we've all done it. I was, me, myself, Shravan Prabhu, that you might have met here, plays Dorky sometimes. We actually took initiation. I took initiation at 16. He took initiation, I think, at 17 or something like that, 17 or 18, just before going to university. So we took Diksha before going to university. So you can imagine, you got to follow the rules and everything, you don't have a choice. But for many people that are students, the thinking is, well, hold on, I want to enjoy myself. So I'll go to uni, I'll do everything, and then I'll burden the spiritual master with all of my Bab Karam. Like, here, I've got a gift for you. Here, take it. That's the typical thinking. But it's funny, I saw something recently. There's a student from Warwick University that comes here, Arohi. She's amazing. She doesn't eat out anywhere. She cooks her own burger at home, a prasad at home. She'll just eat there. She's very strict. She doesn't go out. And her friends came and she said, what's wrong with her? She doesn't come out with us. She does. And I was thinking, I was like, no, what's right with her? I'm like, she's got it. She's understood, hey, I want to do this now. You want to be serious spiritually. And it's not, I'm not saying everyone should do like this. It is very, very difficult, especially because, rightly so, students understand that this is the only time in life when we're really going to be free to kind of do whatever we want. So let's enjoy ourselves. Whereas when I preached at Warwick, my thinking was to tell them, hey, This is the only time when you've got some time. Challenge yourself. Go deeper into here and here, because once you start working, you're not going to be able to think about this sort of stuff. You're just going to be in the mix of it and thinking, what's the point of life? If you haven't thought about that when you've got the time, if you haven't thought, well, why am I here? What's the purpose of life? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? When it comes to the time when you're in the working world and you're in there and you're in the daily grind, you're going to think, I'm just depressed, what's the point? And it happens to everyone. People don't understand this up until you actually get to that point where you go and become an adult. Trust me, it's way better at university. I did 2 degrees for that reason. I did a full undergrad and then did another undergrad because I was like, wow, university is just so much better. The real world is very unforgiving, very unforgiving. So if you haven't figured out your reason for existence, and that doesn't just mean something philosophical. That's the one thing to take note. Something philosophical is not necessarily going to help you, but something that you've really taken in here and you've understood and you realize, I'm making this the goal of my life. And that's what Krishna consciousness has to be. You're not following the rules and regulations just for the sake of it, and you're not rejecting them. You're trying to take on as much as you can and just take the next step forwards. That's the most important. This one, associating with worldly minded people who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. We can't help but do that in the modern world, can we? Does anyone here think, I don't associate with any worldly minded people? It's all over the place. But this is where the devotees are different. They can associate with those worldly minded people. You don't necessarily have to preach to everyone. This was a mistake that I saw many people making. They would go into, because someone encouraged them, hey, you should preach to your people at work. And I have never done that, but I will be spiritual at work. So they will see me, let's say, having a picture of Krishna on my desk. And someone will come across and say, hey, what's that picture? Oh, our baby Krishna, oh, he looks cute, who is he? Is that a picture of your relative? I'm like, yes. That is a picture of my relative. And then you start talking about it. When you have functions at work and you're vegetarian and you don't have onion and garlic, someone will ask, oh, how come you don't have onion and garlic? Then you just explain it to them. So it's very subtly, you drop these things in and they see, this person is different. I wonder why he's doing these things. And when you explain it in such a nice way, they realize, man, this person's got some substance. And it's funny, recently we had a Jubilee program, and one of my colleagues from the job where I worked for 7 years at Warwick Uni, I worked in medical school, doing testing and all that kind of stuff that I'm doing now. The person there referred to me as Pandit Rishi. And I was like, I never told them that I was a devotee or anything like that, but they just got it. They just realized, hey, there's something different about this guy. And they call it Pandit Rishi. So you can see, you don't have to go and just preach to someone. Because Ravi Kiran, one of the devotees, a very, very nice devotee, someone told him you should preach to your friends at work. He went and did it. They started having a huge bust up at work in religion, and it isolated him from all of the people at work. And they would actually make fun of him when he'd be eating his lunch by himself. They would come and take the mick out of him for what he was saying before. And I was like, man, that totally backfired. You just have to be principled yourself. People will appreciate that. And those that are actually interested will say, hey, you seem like a different person, or you seem like a spiritual person. In fact, many times they'll come to ask you for advice. Oh, such as things happen in my family. Why is this happening? I know you're a bit spiritual. Can you help me? You'll find people will do that. You don't have to be fanatical about it, but you have to, in principles, stick to your devotee principles, and people will see you're different. What does that mean? It means helping others. It means bringing in prasad to work and say, hey, would you like some Indian food? You like some samosas, pakoras? Oh, yeah, I love them. My father used to work at Rolls-Royce Aerospace. He was a contracts manager there. He would bring prasad in from the temple every was it Monday? He used to bring it in every Thursday, and we'd go around and we'd be like, oh, have you bought any? And they say, you need to make more samosas at the temple. You're not cooking enough samosas for the Lord, because obviously they wanted to have it. And literally, my father was there, And so many people came when he actually retired. More people came for his retirement than for the CEO when he retired. I remember I still went there. My father was he wore dhoti on his last day to work, and they took a picture there. There must have been 100 people there to come to say goodbye to him. So you can see the kind of impact that a devotee can have. And my father wasn't overly preaching to everyone. He was just being a really nice person, a really good devotee there, principled, and people could tell. So this is the thing. We need to look at being devotees, how for ourselves and how for others. Now, when it comes to university preaching, at Warwick University, when I first started to preach there, this is the second time I went back to university. And first time I did IT, second time I did accountancy and finance. And I remember going to the manor and sitting down with a Prabhupada disciple there, Dean Ali Atman. And I mentioned to him, and they're both Prabhupada disciples, and I mentioned to him, I'm going back to university to do accountancy and finance. And the very first thing he said was, Prabhupada's sending you back there to preach. Yeah. And I was like, And at that point in time, in my first degree there, I was a total introvert. I didn't even speak to anyone for 3 years. I had one friend, and that was just one guy that happened to be sitting next to me on my first day. And literally I literally didn't speak to anyone. And I goes to him and goes, Prabhu, I'm going to be able to preach to anyone. I can barely talk to people. And he goes, don't worry, Prabhupada will empower you. And I was just like, I don't understand. So I said, well, he goes, you know so much of Bhagavad Gita, you memorized so many shlokas. I'm like, yeah, but students don't care. And I still remember one of the first events we did, we had an event on like rise from humans versus animals, room full of people. And I happened to mention in there the same thing that I mentioned to you here, that, our animalistic tendencies, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, the things that set humans apart is the intelligence, because Srila Prabhupada had mentioned that. So I said that. I started having an argument with 3 or 4 people in the crowd. They were like, oh, we've seen it, animals are intelligent, they've got a social structure, shellfish communicate with these little pulses things. And I'm like, yeah, but when's the last time you saw a starfish in the temple? I'm like, when did dogs come in and start discussing philosophy with you? And they wouldn't accept it. And I was like, wow, I have to approach this in a different way. First of all, the students don't care what's in Bhagavad Gita. We do, because we know the value of this. For them, it's another book. For them, there's loads of books, the whole library full of books. They don't care. How did I convince them? I realized if I wanted to actually let them know what Vedic scriptures were, I had to let them find out. So you have to guide the discussion in such a way where it looks like they found it out, whereas actually you found it out for them. It's very, very subtle. First thing I started to do is look into scientific processes. Try to prove what the scriptures say scientifically. So I started to research Bhagavad Gita, and there's loads of references actually of how the Vedas and our scriptures had things like astronomy, had things like looking at the positions of the stars down to exact timings, which even nowadays they've only just got through satellites. They were doing this then. And there's loads of other proofs about how the embryo develops in the womb and all that kind of stuff. So I put together a whole session just on scientific proofs of the Vedic literatures. And we did a whole session on it. People were blown away. The biggest thing was something like Ram Setu. I literally did a session where I put up on the screen, the story of Ramayana is Lord Ram took a bunch of monkeys and went to Lanka, took some rocks, threw it in and made a bridge and went across to fight Ravana. I goes, who believes in this? Even the Indians in the audience didn't put their hand up. I looked at them and I said, are you ashamed of your culture? They were all just quiet. And I go, so do you believe this Ram Setu exists? And everyone was like, no, it doesn't. I put up a satellite image from NASA showing the bridge in between. And that NASA had produced a report. They didn't know anything about Ramayana. A guy called Adam had just seen a line in between Lanka and Bharat. And he sent a team down there, American team, to analyze it. They analyzed it and they found that the rock couldn't have been deposited naturally. They said this is a type of limestone which isn't available during the flow of the ocean. He goes, but there is a mountain range nearby which is the same as this. So we're guessing that that must have been transported from there to there. They dated the rocks in there and they said it's approximately 1.7 million years old. And they said it's man-made. They just published a report. As soon as the Indian scientists, someone happened to find this, and they went, hold on a second, this fits exactly with what Ramayana is saying. Lord Ram came in Treta Yuga. If you look at the timings, that's 1.7 million years ago. The monkeys came, picked up the rocks from the mountains, and put them in the ocean. They built a bridge across. The fact that it's man-made and men had only been around, according to the Western view, for about 200,000 years, what does that tell you? That the Western way of looking at history is totally out. And this is NASA. So then I asked them the question, so now do you believe in Ramayana? Pin drop silence. Because it's just proved it scientifically. I goes, you tell me, how is that going to happen? Is aliens going to come down and do it? I don't think so. But we've got it written in our scriptures. And there's so many proofs like this. There's proof of Dvarka sunk in the ocean. They've got loads of proofs. And in fact, America has tried to stop Bharat. They said, you must stop excavating this site. Because everything you're finding in there is basically differing with the Western view of advanced civilizations. They were finding so much structures and everything under there that are far more advanced than those in the West at that time. They actually put sanctions on India and stopped researching down there. There's loads of stuff. If you actually look into it, you can find those proofs. You have to convince students through a scientific process. One of the biggest things that I covered was actually two things: past life regression and near-death experiences. That's about as close to you're going to get as proving the soul. And there's a lady that came here the other day, and she had been to many Iskcon temples, and no one had actually sat with her and talked to her through. So she was a yoga teacher that had gone into Buddhism, this and that. So literally within half an hour of sitting with her, I had taught her about proof of the soul, near-death experiences, and past life regression. Near-death experiences is when a person's having a surgery, they come out of their body and they can see what's happening in the surgery, and then they tell the surgeon about it when they come out. Oh, you did this, you did that, you did this. And the surgeon's like, how do you know? You're unconscious. So there's a whole study, a whole sort of, not society, what do you call it? Research institute that's set up in the 70s, and they've collected like some 30,000 of these cases. And this is like a recognized thing across the world. And it's like literally when you look at some of these cases, it's impossible to happen unless it's a soul. So you're using these sort of scientific proofs that you can prove, or more or less almost exactly prove that the spirit soul is there. Once people actually understand that, then you can look at, tell them God consciousness, or this is what the scriptures are saying. Then they'll believe it. And in fact, even nowadays, I realized that everything that I've been doing in 13 years there has actually set me up to preach to regular people. Because if you can convince the academic elite about it, the regular people that are not academically elite, you'll easily convince them. And Sri Prabhupada always said, this is the science of Krishna consciousness. He would never say this is religion. He would always say this is scientific. So we should actually be scientific about it. One of Sri Prabhupada's disciples, Dr. Singh, so that's Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. He was a Nobel scientist, and one of the years, didn't he, after he passed away, they actually held the Nobel committee meeting in Mayapur. Because he would go there and present Krishna consciousness philosophy from the scientific perspective. And after he passed away, they were so honored by him, they actually had their next meeting in Mayapur. So Sri Prabhupada told him, go and preach Krishna consciousness to them in a scientific way. So he has so many books as well on all of this. So this is the way actually to preach to people. Don't just depend on what it says in Bhagavad Gita. Use the combination of the two together. And that way, if they're skeptical, they'll have to look at the science of it. And if they accept the science, they'll accept Krishna. So sorry, it's a bit of a disjointed class.
No.
But shall I finish?
If they got any questions?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions?
Any comments? Don't be shy.
Now we have been trying to have an outreach, and it's just that most of the time only Indians
Yeah.
they show interest, and they are the ones who attend the sessions as well.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to get people from other backgrounds.
Yeah.
To come. How did you manage to convince them?
The way we managed to do it was to not make it too Indian centric. So if we did a session on chanting, we would just call it mantra meditation, and we used to get all different kinds of people coming in. You don't have, this is what I'm saying, if you look at it from more of a logical approach and make your titles attractive like that, you'll get so many different kinds of people coming. We did past life regression. We filled a whole hall of about 200 people, and it was probably half Indian and the rest were all white and everything. Shiva Maharaj even came to one of the events that we did, and he was debating with the people in the audience, and I came in actually and shut a few of them up because they were being a little bit disrespectful to Maharaj, and so I logically just defeated their argument and they both just sat down. And so doing events which you roughly have a little bit of the subject matter, but it's also topical, that will help you bring in the other people. So do something like science versus religion, and then invite other societies in. Then you're going to get a mixed crowd. And that's a great opportunity to actually distribute the books. What we did was to get the books sponsored and actually distribute them at the end. The students typically don't have money. So you ask them for a donation, they put the book back.
Yeah.
You're just like, if you just get them sponsored and do it, that's a good way to do it.
Plus, you used to do the mantra meditation, and others will attend as well.
Yeah.
And enjoy it.
So mantra meditation, get them to just sit and chant. Don't tell them what it is, just tell them, look, this will help with stress and depression if you're stressed when you're doing your studies and all that kind of stuff. And then they just sit and do it. And we used to get people, it was actually funny, when we did mantra meditation sessions, more than 50% would be English. And we just gave them bead bags and they would just bring them and just sit and chant. It was great. So you have to just target them appropriately. And if you just have Indians coming, it's not a bad thing. Even within Iskcon worldwide, they're finding that in Srila Prabhupada's times, Srila Prabhupada was able to attract so many more Western people. Nowadays, though, you still find Indians are mainly filling up Iskcon temple. It's not a bad thing, but I'll tell you what it is. With respect, Indian people are the hardest to convince about things. 100%. I've been there with like Pundrik Goswami. If you know anything about different speakers, he's one of the most erudite speakers in the world on Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He's incredible. Iskcon sannyasis go and listen to him. That's how great he is. I heard him once debating with some just regular Indian boys there. They just wouldn't accept anything he said. And they just keep arguing. And I'm like, wow, what are they made of? They just don't listen. And this is where you have to embarrass them a little bit. I used to do it all the time. And an easy way to do it is I would start off with a session like science versus religion. And I would go around saying, okay, so do you think that science and religion can coexist? And everyone's like, no, I don't believe it. Science means you have to reproduce this, blah, 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 blah. They go all the way around. Everyone would have their little go. And then I'm like, okay, raise your hands here if you're more clever than Einstein. No one raised their hands. Raise your hand if you're cleverer than Stephen Hawking. No one raised their hands. Then I read a quote from Einstein saying God doesn't play with dice. I go, so Einstein has basically said he believes in God. So what do you guys think? All of a sudden, because they're not cleverer than Einstein, are they? They might think they're cleverer than you, but they're not cleverer than Einstein. So this is where you have to kind of challenge them a little bit, because with students, a lot of the times, there's many times that we've had discussions with students where logically I'll destroy their argument completely. They haven't got anything left. I'm like, have you got anything else? No. But then I go, do you accept it? No. Because ego. A lot of it is just ego. One person, I said to them, I said, look, I presented everything about spirituality and the soul. Do you accept it? And that person was like, well, if I accept it, I want to have to change how I'm living. I don't want to do that. They're like, if I accept everything you said, I have to change how I'm living my life, but I don't want to change. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So our job isn't to necessarily try and convince them. It's to present it very nicely to them. Give them the key things, like the books, the prashad, a bit of the chanting and all that. Because with many people, they haven't got enough sukriti, enough piety to be able to become Krishna conscious. Whereas those you'll find, sometimes it'll be very easy. You just present it to them, they'll be like, oh, I love it, and they'll take it. And you think, oh, maybe they're just simple, maybe they're just bala. No, they've got enough good karma, sukriti, that they're ready. Srila Prabhupada even said, if they haven't got sukriti to do it, they won't take it. So give them more sukriti, give them prashad, give them that. That will raise their level of good karma to the point where they're able to do it. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to put Krishna in their life. Eventually he'll come to the point where they get enough good credits to be able to do it. With your intelligence and stuff, you're not going to be able to do it. Doesn't mean you don't try. Try your level best, because sometimes the person you're arguing with you won't defeat, but there'll be 3 other people listening that didn't want to ask the question because they were too shy. They'll come afterwards and say, I really liked that. Can you tell me more? Can you explain more? That's how you do it. So you're not necessarily with that person, you're doing it for the people around that are listening in and stuff like that. It's very much a thing, preaching, you think you're talking one-on-one, whereas realistically other people will be listening in as well. So it's always a thing where whenever you're there in front of them, always try and have a nice, set a good idea, like in terms of that. So you're always friendly to all. If in Veda Vyas, someone asked him at the end, after he'd written all the Vedas, they said, what are you trying to say after all? You talked about good karma, bad karma, but you've written so many scriptures. Can you just summarize it for us? And Veda Vyasi said that para upakaraya punyaya papaya parapidana. That what is good karma? Para upakar, doing good for others. That's good karma. What's pap? Papaya parapidana. Giving trouble to others. That's pap. That's all it boils down to. Papa and punya. So if you're doing good for others, you're doing good karma. So even if you get them just to that point where they don't harm others, and something like meat eating is a very hot topic now, this veganism thing, you got the perfect chance to make people vegetarian. You really have, because there's so much nowadays. Like when I finished doing this society maybe like 3-4 years ago, veganism wasn't that big then. Now it's huge. So you can hold those sort of events on veganism. You'll get everyone coming, and you'll get loads of people coming that will challenge you on it. We had loads of those sessions. That's a really great way, because then you can give them the higher taste books, and in there's a lot of Krishna conscious philosophy at the start. So that's a great, the vegetarian angle is a very, very good one to use, because it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, everyone can appreciate not harming animals. So you've got a lot of good ins to get them interested. So, and many of even the Indians, that they'll come over from India, and one guy, remember Sahil, he came over here, he vegetarian his whole life. He came over and he's like, there's nothing to eat. I had to start eating meat. I'm like, bro, like seriously? He goes, yeah, there's nothing to eat. I goes, even if you just went into Sainsbury's, there's so many vegetarian options. Why do you need to start eating meat? And after he came here, I goes, look, bro, we will personally bring you prasad every day if you stop eating meat. And the guy, we showed him how to make a few items. The guy turned vegetarian again, joined the society, and became one of our best guys. He was preaching to everyone. Like literally every single person he would meet would come, I'll tell you about Krishna. So with our own Indians from there, sometimes they come here and go, oh, I can't make it on vegetarians, but I have to eat meat. You have to explain to them, hey man, there's so many options and stuff like that. So start from the meat eating angle. It's a very easy way to get in. And from there, you can go in and say, well, why are we doing it? Because ahimsa. And then you can go into all the other principles, mercy, tolerance, and then that leads you into the good karma, Krishna consciousness, and all that from there. So it's an exciting time for you to be doing it, really is, because you're going to get a lot of different opinions coming your way. And each time, don't think you have to be a success every time. I just told you about the first time I did the session. It was a disaster for me. And I had a few other ones, but then you become really good. And then you be able to anticipate, and you actually really enjoy it. Like I like going in, like Villa Prabhu, like Haridas Prabhu, we like going and discussing and arguing logically and that kind of stuff. Like we, Villa Prabhu and Haridas Prabhu came many times to give sessions at the university. And Villa Prabhu came for an event on science. Villa was really big on science. We had a whole auditorium, and there was Villa Prabhu, this other Christian person and a scientist, and they had a debate on like the origin of life. Oh, that was amazing. Haridas Prabhu would come regularly to play the guitar, and he used to be in a rock band and everything like that. She used to love that. Like, oh my God, he used to be in a rock band. And then he goes, well, then I became Christian consciousness. And things like that, it really inspires the youngsters. Because let's face it, none of them were in a rock band, are they? So they don't understand. Everyone would, oh my God, I'd love to be doing singing, doing gigs and all that kind of stuff. So when they see that, they're like, oh my God, you used to do that. And now you went into this. Why? So it becomes that thing where they want to see like a journey into it, not just, oh, my parents used to do this, and so I started doing it. That doesn't inspire anyone, does it, realistically speaking? Because they want to see you're making logical choices.
Have you met people who were in your...
Oh yeah, loads. So I get contacted like years afterwards. There'll be people that will get in touch with me and they say, oh, thanks to you, like doing the society, I became Krishna conscious and I married a devotee. Or I met the person that I married at the society. And we've had so many like marriages from the society. We've had people that have come years later saying, we literally at the manor the other day, and I ran into Hirsch. You know Hirsch that used to come here. And I stopped him and I was like, hey, Hari Prabhu, how you doing? And he thanked myself and Ragi. He goes, thank you guys. He goes, I got my start in Krishna consciousness at Warwick University. And now he went into living to the manor for 8 months, did their book, the program. Now he's singing and playing instruments and doing all of that. And literally, I get calls and stuff like regularly from people saying, oh, thank you so much.
So once somebody sent you 1,000 baht?
Yeah.
As a thank you?
Afterwards, yeah, because we were collecting for Bhagavad Gita and I just thought, let me contact some former students. And then he was really, he was so grateful for what we did with the site. He gave £1,000 for Bhagavad Gita sponsorship. So you will help so many people, whether you hear from them or not, just by giving them the books, giving them prasad. Well, you heard the story of Steve Jobs. He used to go to have prasad, and then when he became super rich, he went and gave 100 grand to the Iskcon temple because he just used to eat there. So everything you're doing will have an effect. Whether you feel like it's successful or not, it doesn't matter. You're doing it just to make Srila Prabhupada happy and for the happiness of the Lord.
And how much, when you're making your presentation, you have to be convincing? I mean, you've got to be convincing when you're doing this.
Play to your clientele. At Warwick Uni, at Coventry Uni now is a little bit better. Warwick was top 5 when I was studying there. So these are very clever guys. We had a session on science versus religion. One of the people came that used to be at Birmingham University. And he came there to our session. And I told him, I said, look, man, these guys are really clever. You can't do the normal stuff you do at other universities, like love and this and that. I love the Lord. They ain't going to care about any of that. And he was like, yeah, I know, I've done this before. So we went around the table. He came out with this thing, oh yeah, we have to love everyone. You should feel this connection with people, this and that. And one person said, excuse me, you're just talking about hormones and the interactions in your brain, which you think is love. They just destroyed his argument right there, and he just sat down. And I goes, Prabhu, I told you. I was like, watch this. Within 5 minutes, I dismantled everyone's arguments and shut them all up, and no one was able to establish my point. I goes, Prabhu, that's how it's done here. These guys are clever. You can't come in with the whole, but it depends. Play to your clientele. If the students there aren't very clever and they're more into that, give them that side of it. If they're very erudite, you have to go the logical, scientific route. So play to what the audience wants. If there's guys that aren't very scholarly and you're giving them more scholarly stuff, they're not going to care, are they? So look at the crowd that you're getting and give them what they want. Whether they like music, or do more kirtans. If they like food, you'll find mostly they all come for food. Let's face it. Let's be real. And don't, yeah.
Srila Prabhupada said university students don't preach at them.
Yeah.
For them to be at that place in the
Mm.
university, they already has clever ability.
Yeah.
They're already clever. To present your arguments in the disciple.
Exactly.
You don't have to convert them.
No.
Act that.
Don't give them any rules and regulations, for goodness sake. Don't tell them that you have to do this or you don't have to do that. The way I always used to present it is, and I still think that's the truth, karma is a choice. It's like, for example, everything is a choice. Like, so in society, they say, do you want to follow the rules? You'll stay out of prison. If you choose not to follow the rules and you steal something, you murder someone, you got to go to prison. Karma's a choice. You can choose to do this option or you can choose to do the option. The choice is always yours. The good choice is going to lead to something good for you. It's like if I say, if you're studying, if you don't revise, are you going to pass? Maybe it's multiple choice and you get very, very lucky. But usually, no, you're not going to pass. So karma's like that. You can choose to do the bad karma if you want. It's not going to be in your favor in the long run, but the choice is always yours. If you present stuff like that, or it looks more like, hey, hold on, I can do what I like. But if you say, boo, you can't do this, you can't do that, your attendance is going to go to nothing like very quick. So don't give a lot of rules and regulations. You need to show them the positives of Krishna consciousness. And it's funny, there's one guy that I preached to, he's still a really good friend of mine. This person is a Punjabi, but he was raised around English people. So he's absolutely no idea of Indian culture or anything whatsoever. Met him at the gym, you guys know Farron. And he looks like some movie star, like Italian movie star, super good looking, really good physique, everything. I'm like, this guy doesn't need Krishna consciousness. So I just start generally chatting to him. And he was like, oh yeah. You're like into this meditation stuff. He goes, I've got a bit of anxiety problem. I have difficulty going on planes and stuff. I start getting nervous. And everything. I was like, okay, yeah, I've got something for you. Here's this mantra you can chant. Chant this mantra and it'll calm you down, everything like that. So I told him the mantra, showed him how to chant it. He was doing a holiday to Spain or something like that. And when he went on the plane, he sat there and he chanted my mantra. He was able to go on the flight. And his friends were like, man, you're not freaking out. This mantra's really good. And he came back to me and he goes, hey man, I could go on the plane. And I goes, dude, if you get stressed, even normally, we were like, because he gets stressed with his job, like he was a recruiter. I goes, just chant the Maha Mantra. And he goes, yeah, I'll try that. So a few months later, he comes up to me and he goes, Rishi, I've been chanting the Maha Mantra. He goes, but something weird is happening. I go, what do you mean something weird? He goes, when I go out drinking, I don't feel good. He goes, I feel like I should be doing it. He goes, when I eat meat, I feel like I should be doing it. I goes, and I hadn't given him any books, I hadn't given him anything. I just gave him the Maha Mantra. He goes, I feel like I shouldn't be doing it. And I go, you know what, you should follow your instincts, mate. You should just, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. He didn't realise the chanting was making him change. So you don't have to always explain stuff. Just give them the stuff and the Maha Mantra will do his job.
And then what did he do to you? What favour did he do?
Oh yeah, he sorted my whole career out. So.
Yeah, he told him, what are you doing at Warwick University? That's peanuts they're giving you.
It's funny,
He was a recruiter. So
if I hadn't have spoken to him, I wouldn't have had a career because I was stuck doing accountancy and he got me into... So you'd be surprised, the people sometimes that you preach to, Krishna puts you to help him and them to help you. And it's very much you going out... Remember, preaching is something which is basically... It's empathy and it's mercy. It's mercy towards people that haven't got Krishna. Did you want to say?
It is one final point for me is that sometimes you feel that you need to fit in and live up your principles. But I recently saw a film called A Man Who Knew Infinity.
Okay.
It was Ramanujan, Srinivas Ramanujan,
Oh, yeah.
right? He was Vaishnav. And he maintained his Vaishnav diet while he was at Cambridge University. And in those days, now there's so many options about eating. But in those days, my goodness, there was hardly any. Prabhupada similarly, when he was telling everybody, I'm going to go to America, and I'm saying, oh, you'll never survive. You'll have to eat meat. You'll have to eat meat, nothing else there. And Prabhupada went there, retained his dress as a sannyasi, retained his Vaishnav diet, but it didn't change for that culture. It changed this culture. So it's possible.
Oh, 100%.
He changed the world rather than
Changed
the
the
world
world.
change him.
And one of his favorite sayings, Prabhupada, he says, I have come here to learn, I have come here to teach.
So yeah, definitely. And don't always feel like, last point I'll leave you on is, you are going to encounter things that you don't know. You're going to encounter questions that people ask you and you don't know the answer. It's okay to say, I don't know, but I'll ask and find out for you. Don't go in there trying to be some sort of authority, because then when you do get beaten in an argument, you lose a lot of the people's respect. If you go in there and say, well, I don't know everything, but I know a bit, but I've got people that I can ask. You know, and many times that I would encounter arguments where I wouldn't quite know how to defeat it. I'd ask Haridal Prabhu, I'd ask Vidal Prabhu, I'd ask others, get the answer, so the next time I face that question, I was able to answer it. So it's a really exciting thing for you guys to do, really. You'll learn a hell of a lot, and just go in there and just do it for Prabhupada, and he'll help you. Honestly, so many times the answers would come in my head as I'm debating with someone, or as I'm doing it. They'll have something that I'd never even thought of before, and it'll just pop in my head the answer. And I'll even be like, whoa, where did that come from? Because Srila Prabhupada's helping. So I don't know if you guys have ever had that. It's amazing, it does happen, because we're doing the Lord's work. Srila Prabhupada said in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that bringing people to Krishna consciousness, that's the most confidential service of the Lord. And he said, that person that does this is the most dear to me. So you become, and this goes for everyone. When you see someone new in the temple as well, don't be afraid to go and speak to them. There are a lot of devotees that do this here. Like that other lady, that lady was just sitting there, and we just decided to speak to her to say, hey, how did you find out about the temple? Do you know about Krishna consciousness? And then we got into a discussion with her. She ended up taking self-realization. We told her about chanting, showed her how to chant.
And she came here for her birthday.
Yeah, on her birthday the next day, she came again. Instead of going out with her friends, she came to the temple. So don't be afraid in the temple. If you see somebody new, just go and speak to them and say, oh, how did you find out about the temple? Just start general chit-chat about spirituality. You can talk a little bit about, like, I know people used to just go there and start saying, hey, what's your local football team? And just start talking about that stuff. That's okay for a lead-in, but if they're in a temple, they're probably at least a little bit interested spiritually. So it's always nice to go and talk to them and just do a little bit of preaching. I think that's probably time.
Done well.
Yeah.
Round of applause for him. Right. Johnny Dave.
So, we don't want to good folks.
Janki and Tulsi, Kibajaya, please. Very nice.
Sachinandan Jayo Nitai Chan
Jayo Sachinandan Jayo Nitai Chan Sachinandan Jayo Nitai Chan
Nitai Jayo Jayo Gora Chande
Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya
Jai Siya Ram.
Hare Siya Ram Hare Siya Ram Siya Ram
Thank you.
Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai
Premana Harival, Jaya Vishipan, Anamamsa, Parivrajacharya, Stotar, Sashrish, Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Iskcon Coventry Founder Acharya Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Iskcon Guru Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Satyananda Chand Ki Jai, Shri Gadadhar Subhadra Ki Jai, Shri Radha Maharushi, Shri Radha Raman Lal Ki Jai, Shri Manima Shri Madhu Tulsi Ki Virat Ki Jai, Principal Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Gangama Yonmai Saraswati Mai Ki Jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai, Nam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Iskcon Coventry Yatra Ki Jai, Iskcon Worldwide Yatra Ki Jai, Guru Premanandi, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the all glory to the assembled devotees.
Is everybody awake now?
So Hare Krishna, we will do nothing Arati, but I just sent some messages that that we have lost to the Ukraine, the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because there are many devotees who continue to do some seva, food for life, helping the victims. We apparently one particularly a building where Food for Life was being conducted from was hit by a missile,
Really?
and 2 devotees were buried and died in that rubble. One is injured. Krishna Tattva Prabhu and Madan Gopal Prabhu, 2 devotees who lost their lives. So we must really remember them. We are also remembering Priyanka's mother, and there's the standard list we use every day, so all of those are to be included in the messenger prayers. Hare Krishna.
Raghav would like to say? Come, take a mic. It's tall now.
Namaste Narasimhaya
One at 9
We repeat after you.
Namaste again, sir.
Namaste Narasimhaya
Everybody.
प्रभुपाद की जय, महाराज की जय।
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. With the Prabhu, you want to make announcements about Kirubab and thing. Is there any card sheets or anything? Did we do it recently? No, I forget.
After 24th. That next Sunday. Is it? Yeah, after the movie.
Kirubab. It'll be a 7:30. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So announcements of events happening. So last Wednesday we had Guru Purnima, Vyas Puja Mahotsav, and that's to celebrate the appearance of Vyasadeva, who is the representative of all gurus. Vyasadeva, we heard about it in the class, how all Vedic literature he wrote down. And then as his final contribution, it was Srimad Bhagavad Mahapuran he wrote. So that was last Wednesday. So in honor, so remembering our Guru Maharaj, his Tirobhava's disappearance anniversary is the coming Wednesday. So we will be having a program here 7:30 in the evening. We invite all of you for that. Next Sunday is Ekadasi. Just be
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
Oh, wow.
So be mindful of that. And in between, we have disappearance of Gopal Goswami on Monday, disappearance of Lokanath Goswami on Wednesday, and the incorporation of Iskcon in New York on Thursday,
This Thursday, yeah?
coming Thursday.
How many
Yeah.
years is that?
No.
Was it 67?
Yes, yes.
51.
Okay, those are the announcements. Thank you very much. I will serve the prasad now, so I will praise Sharira Vidyajal, Jadendriya Taika, Jiva Pele Vishai Sagare, Aramad Jivati, Lovamoy Sudarmati, Nakijata Katina Sangsare, Krishna Badalo Yamoy, Puri Bari Jiva Joy, Swaprasadana Dilovai, Sainamrita Pavo, Radha Krishna Gunagao, Premida Kuchita Nitai, Jai Nima Jai Nita.